All right, skin functions. This is just rote memorization time, and actually this makes a lot of common sense if you just think about it. Okay, it is a barrier. So one, it is a barrier. Okay, and so what does a barrier do? It keeps things on the outside, and it keeps things on the inside, I don't care. No, I shouldn't say that. I don't want you to go that it protects against bacteria, invasions, and blah, 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 blah. No, it keeps bad shit on the outside, and it keeps the stuff that we need to keep on the inside. Okay, that's what a barrier does. It is a barrier. Okay, 2, it prevents water loss. Okay, your skin is waterproof. Your skin is actually waterproof. When you go and get into the bathtub and you sit there and you soak and you're like, I've had a crap day. I'm just gonna just soak and soak and soak. And you look at it and your hands are pruny. And you're like, why are your hands pruny? It's because your skin has absorbed water and it's giving that swollen appearance, and eventually it'll evaporate out. But that water doesn't go into the skin. Can you imagine what would happen to you if your skin just leaked? It allowed water to leak out and leak in. You'd be dehydrated really quickly. So good. It's waterproof, prevents that. Okay. Your skin, 3, allows you to interact with the environment. Okay. When you put your hand on your desk, you can feel that it's cool. You can feel that it's hard. You can feel the texture. Okay, it allows you to feel pain. Okay, you can actually, feel things that are soft. Okay, that's because you have nerves. Okay, there are sensory receptors inside of your skin. Okay, and your fingers actually have a lot of sensory space in the brain, because this is how we predominantly interact with our environment, is through our hands itself. Okay. 4, it will excrete some wastes. Okay, through the sweat. Okay, that's what the skin will do. Okay, 5, it makes the precursor to vitamin D. So when you sit out and enjoy the sun and you get those nice sun rays, 2 things are happening. 2 main things are happening. 1, you're stimulating those melanocytes to produce melanin, and number 2, you're stimulating your skin to produce vitamin D. It makes the precursor to vitamin D itself. Okay. Now, don't say that the skin makes the active vitamin D. It doesn't. It's not activated. Then when the skin, makes the vitamin D, then it goes down to the kidney. Then the kidney turns it into the vitamin D that the body can use. But without the skin, you wouldn't be able to make vitamin D. Okay. So you need the skin to do it. And then 6, we've already talked about this, regulation of body temperature. Okay, that's it. So that's the last thing that we've done. Okay. Now, we've already talked about regulation of body temperature. Let me just go over this in a little bit more depth. Okay, so normal body temperature. So we're going to say body temperature. Okay, so normal is 98.6 plus or minus 1 degree. Okay, or so. Okay, so 99.6, perfectly good. 97.6, perfectly good. We're a spectrum. You're not 100%. Okay, or 37 degrees Celsius. This is Fahrenheit. Okay, this is bad. This is good. I want you to start learning Celsius. I want you to start learning the Celsius things. So 37 degrees Celsius. Okay. All right. So now, how you get rid of heat? There are basically 4 ways. Okay, getting rid of heat. Okay. The number one way here is you radiate it off. Radiate. Okay, so basically what that is it just comes off of you, you know, heat rays. Okay, then we have conduction, and this is the moving from high temp to low temp. Okay, this is I want you to remember this. Okay, you move from an area of high temperature, so high areas of heat to low areas of heat. Okay, you don't go from low areas of heat to high areas of heat. So this is what I want you to think. So I want you at one time in the future, in the near future, take an ice cube, and I want you to hold it in your hand. And what you do is you feel cold. You feel like your hand is getting cold, okay? And a lot of people, what they will do is they think that the cold is moving into their hands. That's not what is happening, okay? The heat from your hand is moving into the ice cube to melt it because your hand is warmer than the ice cubes. And we always go from an area high to low, even in heat conduction, okay? But what that is, what that loss of heat does is the nerves in your hand are like, oh God, that's actually kind of cold. So it gives you the feeling, your hand tells your brain that it feels cold, okay? So that's conduction. 3, you have this thing called convection. Basically, this is heat loss due to air currents. And this is how fans work. So when you have a fan blowing at you, it feels cool because the heat is being blown away by the fan. And then 4, finally, it is evaporation. Evaporation, okay? And going from a liquid to gas releases heat. Okay, because remember what I told you about heat. Heat is the movement, is an increased movement of molecules. I mean, that's basically what temperature is. You know, the higher temperature, the faster the molecules are moving. And basically what evaporation is those molecules start to move fast. They just break apart from the liquid and they become a gas. I mean, that's what happens in evaporation. So what you're doing is when that molecule gets really fast, it escapes up. It's taking that molecule from the liquid itself, that high spinning liquid. Now the liquid actually decreases in temperature a little bit until another thing starts getting aggravated enough to pop off again. So when you evaporate something, you're actually cooling. You're actually cooling the thing you're evaporating a little bit. And eventually it will go away, but then it's done. So those are the way we do it. So now how your skin cools the body, it's actually 3 of these. Okay, so actually all of them. Okay, when you're hot, you can actually feel heat radiating off of you. Okay, so like when you're done exercising, if you have somebody like put their hands not on your skin, don't touch, just feel it. You can actually feel the heat radiating off of you. Okay, so that's his heat just escaping your body. Okay, so in the next thing, what's going to happen is you can have conduction. Your internal organs are going to heat up faster than the external environment. Okay, and that's when you talk about fever. We're worried about the internal organs. So what the body does is it shunts blood from the internal organs, and it will put it to the skin because we're going to conduct it from a higher area into a lower area. So that's what the blood does. The blood actually takes the heat from the internal environment, internal organs, and brings it up to the skin. And so what that is going to do is we're going to actually get conduction, where the skin is going to basically radiate off. And if we touch something that is cool, that heat is going to go from your skin and it's going to go into the object that is cooler. Okay. So now what sweat does is sweat uses the evaporation and the convection methods of this. So when you're radiating and conducting heat from your skin, if you're sweating, you have a sheen of sweat, that heat is going into the water. Okay, remember the water takes a lot of energy to raise its temperature. So basically it's taking that heat energy and it's actually storing it in the water of the sweat. And basically what it's doing is allowing it to evaporate. And remember, we got a couple things that are going on here. We've got the convection, so we're getting the heat being swept away from us due to current across a wet substance, which is going to increase the rate of evaporation, which is going to decrease it's going to decrease the temperature of the water so we can release more heat into the sweat as well. So that's how your skin does it. It uses sweat to manipulate all four of these mechanisms of heat loss. Okay, so I'm not going to go through the negative feedback loop of it because it's not that important, but it's just how it works. So if you want me to do it, I can go through it in class, and maybe I will go through it in lab, so just so you can see. Okay, all right. So there are two extremes of body temperature. So we're going to call the extremes of body temperature. Okay, there is hyperthermia. Okay, thermia. And this is an excessive high body temperature. Okay, all right. Now, I'm not going to tell you how it happens. It's not important. Okay, I'm not going to give you any symptoms of it because this is not a disease class. But when your body temperature is high, excessively high, we're talking about 104, 105 degrees. That's hyperthermia. Okay, that's hyperthermia. Okay, and then you have hypothermia. Hypothermia. Okay, this is an abnormally low body temperature. Okay, that's all you got to know about that. Okay, you don't have to know any of the symptoms. You don't have to know any of that crap about this. You just have to know a normally low body temperature, hypothermia, and normally high body temperature, hyperthermia. Done and done. Now we're going to talk about burns. Okay, I don't know why they don't want you to talk about wound healing, but that's not one of the objectives of the class. But they said burns. Like, you're going to scrape yourself more than you're going to burn yourself. But hey, who am I? I'm just an adjunct. Okay. All right. So burns. Okay. So we used to call them first degree, third degree, first degree, second degree, third degree, fourth degree. No, now we call them like superficial, deep, and full thickness. So we're going to say here, one, superficial, partial thickness. Partial thickness. Okay. This is the old school first degree burn. Okay, it's only the epidermis. Only the epidermis is injured in a first superficial partial thickness. Okay, and healing is days. Okay, so for examples of this, it'd be like a light sunburn, a quick burn, general inflammation, will cause that to happen. Okay, so then if we have superficial, then we got to go deep. So we have a deep partial thickness. Okay. All right, so this affects epidermis and dermis, but does not go all the way through the dermis. So the epidermis is shot, and then part of the dermis is shot. Okay, so what can cause this? Hot liquids. Okay, hot liquids. So liquid burns / chemical. Super bad sunburns. Okay, we're talking like lobster type sunburns where they're like bright red. And if you ever see one of these people, if you were to stand next to them, they just radiate heat. I mean, people who have this bad sunburn, it's just, oh my God, it's just like, how can they stand it? Now, the thing about this is, I don't know how they can stand it, but they I don't know. I've never had one that bad. Well, I had one that bad on my hand once, and I was like, never again. Okay, so now the thing about this is, they're gonna be blisters. Okay, underline that. When you have a blister, you know that you are in the dermis. Okay, now the reason you have a blister is because you damaged the blood vessels. Okay, damage the blood vessels. Typically, these heal okay. I know your book is like, they may or may not heal. Typically, they're okay. Typically, so they're not going to scar. Okay, because there's so much of the epidermis that is still intact, and so much of the cells of the dermis that are still intact, that the skin will heal and not even scar. Yeah, it's not even scar. Okay, and then we have our third type, and this is called the full thickness burn. Okay, now this takes the dermis, the epidermis, and the accessories. Actually, this gets through the whole thing. This is affects through. So I'm going to say through. Actually, let me erase that and say through both layers. Through both layers, and we may be getting into the in the hypodermis. We may even go through the hypodermis. Okay, so your hair is gone. Okay, your epidermis is gone. Your dermis is gone. So now the nerves could be gone. The blood vessels could be gone. You could be sizzling the fat underneath these things. Okay, you can get down to the bone. Okay, now what causes this? This is just prolonged. Okay, you're trapped in a fire. Car accidents. I actually saw one on a guy who was he was an older gentleman, and he was stuck on a radiator. Yeah, not even that hot, but it was such a prolonged thing that he had third degree burns on the side of his leg, because he not on the side of his leg, on his lower back, because he fell against the radiator and he couldn't get up, and he was there for like 24 hours until somebody found him. And so we had to treat him for third degree, we called them third degree, but full thickness burns like that. Okay, so that's what it is. So prolonged exposure. Okay, now the thing about this is it depends on how severe it is, depends on how much of the skin is affected. Okay, now if it's just a small area, your book says you got to graft. So no, if you've got a small area that's a third degree burn, you might not even need a graft. It might heal itself. The larger the area that is burned, the worse the outcome for this. Okay. All right. So I think it was like saying if you have somebody who's got a 50% of their body is covered by full thickness, they only have a 50% mortality rate. Okay. They will need skin grafts. They're going to need to get this. They're going to need to use outside help to heal this, because it's going to be massive scar tissue, because you've destroyed those whole layers of skin. Okay. There's nothing else to help that, and they're going to be very scarred. They're very scarred. Okay. So the last thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the rule of nines. The rule of nines and burns. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you any questions. Not the rules of nine, is the rule of nine. Okay, and basically this is how to tell when you're looking at somebody how much of their body is burned. Okay, so we're going to say here's the front. We're going to say here's the back. Okay, so we're just going to draw a stick figure. Arm, here's your chest, legs. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little triangle for the genitals. Okay, a little triangle here. Okay. So the front, 4.5% of the body if the head is burned on the front. So we got to do the same thing on the back, neck, shoulders, arms. Here. So we don't do genitals in the back, because there is no junk on the back. Here's our knee. Here's our knee. Here's our knee. Here's our knee. Just to show you, here's a little butt. Okay, here's a little butt right there. Okay, so 4.5 if the back of the head is broke. For a total, so the head equals 9%. So we see we get the rule of nines. So if you burn your entire head, anterior and posterior head, is 9%. So A/P head equals 9%. Okay? Now, if you burn the front side of your upper extremities, is 4%. So here, so 4.5% on the arms, 4.5% for both of them, 4.5%, 4.5%, 4.5%. For both of them. And in the back, if you burn the back, 4.5%, 4.5%. So the front of the arms, 9%. The back of the arms, 9%. So the arms, it is 18%. Okay. Now, if you do the trunk, if you burn the trunk, so here we're going to do this. This is the trunk. So if you do the entire trunk, the chest and the abdomen, the trunk, that is a total of 9%. Okay. And if you do the back, so here's the back. If you burn the back, it is 9%. So, is that right? No, not 9%. That's 18%. Sorry, 18%. Sorry, I got crack. I was smoking crack. That's 18%. It's 9 for the chest, 9 for the abdomen, 9 for the upper back, 9 for the lower back. Okay, so the trunk, front and back, is 36%. So 9 and 9, 9 and 9. Okay, and this includes the butt. Okay, so here this includes the booty as well. Okay, so then again, the anterior lower extremities, both of them. So you get the legs, 9%, 9%. Okay, so that's 9% for a total of 18% because you have two of them. So lower, and then you have the back. So remember you have the back as well, 9% for a total of 18% there. Okay, giving us our legs, the total posterior extremity, 36%. Now we got to look at this little chunk here. This is lowly 1%, and that will account for the remaining 100%. Okay, that'll give it. So that's the rule of nines. That's all you really need to know the rule of nines. Okay. So like I said, I am not going to ask you, you burn an arm, how much is gone. I just want you to look at that and say, oh wow, so what? And you can say 10%. Fine, you'll be a little over, but that's it. Okay, so that's the rule of nines. So those are the burns. Okay, so out of all this, what should you remember? So basically, remember, what does the skin do? Okay, that's it. What does the skin do? I want you to remember the difference between a partial thickness, a full thick, a superficial, superficial. It's basically your thickness burns. Okay, I just remember first, second, and third degrees. So superficial, partial thickness, deep partial thickness, and full thickness burns. Basically, remember which one's going to blister. Okay. Here, deep partial thickness. And remember, it blisters because damage to the blood vessels. Okay. That's why we get blistering. Okay. All right. And that's all I got for this. So we are officially done with the skin. Yay. So we'll do blood next. And I'm not going to do that tonight because it's like freaking late. All right. See you in lab.